Hi everybody, I want to start the notes today actually thinking about the United States. All of these notes are up on the website for you. Okay, when we start thinking about our good old idealistic buddy Woodrow Wilson, there are a number of things that he wants. Key things for you to remember: 14 points, included in those self-determination and the League of Nations. Ultimately, all he's really going to get is the League of Nations. Okay? He gets promises of self-determination and other things. He does this because he thinks that the League is ultimately going to be able to fix all of the other problems later on. Now, when we want to come back and think about what is it that the British and the French are really interested in at the Treaty of Versailles in the negotiations, the things that the British are looking for is freedom of the seas, they're looking for territory, they're looking for international power and prestige. To a certain extent, they want a little bit of security and promises that war is not going to erupt again, but they are ready to retreat more to Britain. The French are the ones that have the most concerns. Keep in mind that the French were invaded in 1871 in the Franco-Prussian War, and then they were invaded again in World War I. And so they're very concerned about a strong Germany. So within that, when we think about security, security includes a lot of things for the French. It includes a Rhineland as a buffer zone. It includes the creation of new countries and nations in Eastern Europe to hold the Germans off as potential allies. Security also includes disarmament. Security for the French also is ultimately going to involve building the Maginot Line and a series of defenses on its border with the Germans. Well, the French, in the long run, get promises from the British and the Americans of security, but they're not ultimately going to get that. That's a big missing piece, and they're going to respond to that loss of security in the 1920s in ways that are going to help lead to the rise of Adolf Hitler and lead to the rise of other fascist states. So what do the French and the Germans get? French and the British get? They get money and they get territory. The territory that both of these two places acquire. First of all, the French, it's Alsace-Lorraine, but it's also colonial territories. When you think about the questions on the back side of the paper, so we come down here, what are the kinds of things that we're thinking about? Well, the territories are still basically colonies, these league mandates that are very important, but they're going by a different name and under a different flag. That's going to cause a lot of bitterness and resentment in those particular colonies. These are some of the new states that are carved out in Eastern Europe, which are supposed to serve as a counterbalance to Germany. Within Germany, we see these two things going on, okay, that are going to help directly lead to the rise of Hitler. The socialists in the Weimar Republic are going to get the blame for the treaty. Hitler is going to claim that the generals were sold out, that the military, which was that German-Prussian institution, was betrayed by the civilian government, especially by the socialists. And the German people themselves are going to feel very offended by the idea of the war guilt clause and the reparations that they're forced to pay and the effect that ultimately that's going to have on their economy in the 1920s. So one thing I really want you to take away from this whole discussion is that the Treaty of Versailles was actually not just the end of one war, but it was setting the stage for a second.